AOT is really a system failure. It's a response, a knee-jerk response to a horrible tragedy that happened in New York, and it was quickly, enforced and put into law. And unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot of thought that I think went behind it. So we should look at it as a system failure, but at the same time, we should look at how we can create a system that doesn't fail. I remember when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed in a hospital emergency room like many people, was dehumanized and had security guards standing over me, was locked in a room for hours. Then was told I had bipolar disorder, which I had no idea what that was. I was told to go up to the unit, which I did. I was showed my room. They told me when to wake up, when to eat, when to shower, and what time program started. Gave me a handful of medication, said goodnight to me, and that was my introduction to my illness. There was no talk about hope, there was no talk about recovery, there was no talk about any future. It was that they were going to treat me as the illness and as my diagnosis, and that was pretty much it. They had no idea how interested I was in other things in life. And so this was supposed to be my treatment. So I entered the system wondering why I was there, what was going on, and what my future entailed. And it was traumatic. And so I started my world in mental illness in a very traumatic way, as many people do. So when we look at people that are involuntarily committed, we look at them in a punitive fashion, like it's their fault because they won't accept treatment, they lack insight. And it's always kind of a blame game that goes on for people that lack that insight. I think the problem, though, is that we don't meet them where they are. We don't get to know them. We don't build the relationships because we're also a time-limited system. We have to stabilize the person fast, don't we? In the emergency room, in the mental health units now, we have to stabilize quick because they're not covered for very long periods of time. They have to be discharged quickly. Discharge planning has to be done pretty rapidly. But if you look at a discharge plan, if you talk to hospitals, which I get to do around the country, and I talk about discharge plans, they're not necessarily connected to the community too much. Everyone works in silos, lives in silos. So what's the expectation through this whole process of illness to wellness, if it is wellness even involved? What is our expectation of our system? There's really not a huge expectation. And what I've learned in mental health is that there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's a middle, there's a middle, there's a middle, and then there's a middle. But where's the end? So we need to create the end. When are people better? When do they recover? When do you say, hey, you're self-determined, you're independent, go live your life? One thing I have to talk about is the representative payee shift. My organization took on representative payee shift, not because we wanted to make $10 a month for doing it. It's because we wanted to get people off of it. So we created a program around teaching people financial skills when they come in. They get shown their budget, they get shown their bills, they make out a fake check to understand how it is to make a check out, and say, well, how much do you need for next week? And they get to fill out their own check, and next week their check is there waiting for them. Now, I hope there's no one from SSA here. When I first started this, we had a guy that came in, and he was an AOT person, IOC person, whatever you want to call it. And we had to control his funds. And he comes in and he says, Steve, give me my effing money. I'm like, well, here's your salary, here's your money for the week. It's $10, $15, whatever it was. It was a very low amount of money for him to live on. He says, no, I want all my money. And he would threaten and threaten, and every month he would come in and threaten. So I thought about it. I said, well, what's the risk? I know he's a drug addict. I know he drinks. But what's the risk? Well, he could die. Well, that's all right, but that's his choice. So what's the risk? So the next month I said, you know what, I'm going to give him all his money, and I did. I couldn't pay his rent because I gave him all his money. So now the next month he was homeless. But after I gave him his check, 2 days later he came in, drugged out, and said, I'm out of money, you got to help me. I have no food, I have no water. And I said, how's that working for you? And so I put it back on him to say, it was your choice. You wanted it, I gave it to you, how's that working for you? You like that? The next month he was homeless. It was even worse. Comes back in, he wants all his money again. I said, well, remember last month, I didn't give you all your money? And yeah, well, here's all your money again. See you later. Comes back a few days later, same thing. Go to Dale, I need more money. How's that working? See you next month. 6 months later, he comes in and says, Steve, you got to take care of my money. He says, I'm not going to do this. That was his decision, his self-determination, his failure, his right to fail was given to him. And so often we respond and react because we think we have to protect people. We have that paternal instinct because we're humans. But we have to let go of that sometimes. We have to give people the education that they deserve. We should give them the information they deserve, and then give them the choices, but give them time to make those choices. And our system isn't designed like that, so we can't accept it. You know, because it's not designed like it doesn't mean it's okay. I think leveraging should be more of a self-determination. If you don't do this, let's explore what could happen to you. Now you make the decision. Instead of saying, we're not going to give you the money, we're not going to give you housing, we're not going to give you whatever. Why is it our decision to say that? It's the person's decision. It should be their choice to decide where they're going to go. Even when folks lack insight, I have never met anyone, and I have literally spoken to many people in New York State that have been in many different states of reality or whatever you want to call it, that I haven't seen a window of sanity open where I've been able to reach them, talk to them, relate with them, build a relationship with them, and then say, well, now what do you think? And let them make their own decisions. But we have to think of engagement differently in our system. When we engage, we can't just go in and say, we're here to save you. We have to go in there and say, you got to help me because I don't know how to save you. You probably know how to save yourself better. And here are the tools. And giving the people the tools and the education that they need to make their own decisions. This isn't easy to do. It's took me 10 years in my organization to get where I am because I need to be able to make those decisions.